7.8 billion humans. 1.9 million species extinct. One planet. Where are we heading? What should we do?
Watch Climate Tracker, only on WION. World is One.
From the world's most volatile region, conflicts over faith and boundaries. Stories of death, destruction, despair, and hope. WION brings you to the heart of the action. Incisive analysis, unrivaled perspective, and exclusive ground reports. Watch West Asia Post every Friday, 8:30 p.m. IST with me, Radi Francis, only on WION. World is One.
Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views and analysis. WIONews.com. World is One.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight.
看这个啊！哎我去，老了。
我是今朝是蛮哦，一点不知侬年纪了，第三任。
The Wuhan Virus Nightmare continues to haunt China as infections mount, ICUs fill up, dead bodies piling up in wards in Shanghai. Caskets are lying astray in parking lots. People are waiting in queues to register for funeral services. Tonight on Gravitas, we get you images that narrate the story of the horror that the country is witnessing at this point. 5 videos emerging from the country. What is driving this surge in infections? What lies ahead? What does it mean for you and me? That is our top focus in this edition tonight. Also on the show for you, we tell you how much money the Ukraine war machine has gobbled up. Is Ukraine America's cat's paw? We tell you why we ask that question. Does processed meat cause cancer? A new report raises concern. Is Kim Jong-un preparing to resume the Korean War? We tell you what's brewing in the Korean Peninsula. The UAE government has a special New Year's gift for its employees. 1 year paid leave for the government workers wanting to start their own business. We begin the show tonight with 5 shocking videos from China. Videos that the Chinese regime will never show you. Videos that tell you about the scale of the Wuhan virus tragedy in China. The first video is from Anshan, a city in the Liaoning province. It shows what resembles a parking lot with a series of dead bodies lying inside caskets. Reports say this video was shot right before they were taken to a funeral home. Have a look.
看看这个啊！哎呦我去，老了。全是啊，全是外头屋里全是冰柜、地库。哎呦我去！
And if you think that's bad, then wait until you see this. This video is from a Shanghai hospital. It shows dead bodies wrapped inside medical gowns. They are lying inside a locker room like luggage waiting to be loaded. The third video is also from Shanghai. It shows a sea of people waiting in long queues. Look carefully, the lines stretch to the very end of the facility. What exactly are these people waiting for? Reports say to register themselves for funeral services. Watch this now.
我是今朝是15号报信，人家4点半来排队哦，一点不知侬年纪哦，里3层外3层。 排到后头 ，OK 啊，排到后头再活过来，阿拉个客户辣搿只位置穿红衣裳个，7点开到啊，后头介许多人排队，侬看叫，这是今天的拿号情况啊。如果你们方便的话，星期一早上一定要找来一个人排队，保信大门不关的，不关的，好吧？ 这是真人真事啊！礼拜一侬叫一个人早点来排队，要不然侬搿几个钟头就搿能样子等了该。排到后头人今朝还勿一定拿得到好吧？搿是今朝个情况。
The fourth video is from Beijing, the capital of China. It says it has recorded 2 deaths, but these images tell a completely different story. They show how a crematorium has run out of space with a colossal number of dead bodies waiting to be disposed. And the fifth video is from Chengdu, a city in the Sichuan province. It shows a crowded hospital corridor, COVID-19 patients being carried on stretchers as distraught relatives roam around in stress. These were just 5 videos. There are many more horrific images, many more shocking accounts, many more terrifying details. And we have been bringing them to you every day. Not for personal gain or benefit, but to tell the world about the plight of the Chinese people, the kind of suffering that their leader has inflicted upon them, the price that they are paying for his lopsided policies. Have a look at this report now. It says people in China are rushing to book travel as the country's borders finally reopen. It says travel offices are reporting a spike in traffic. Passport applications are at an all-time high. The question is, are these people just looking to travel, or are they looking to escape the country, to run away from the grasp of the Chinese state? And I ask these questions because an exodus is underway in China, and we have been reporting on it for days now. Now, another report has emerged. It says Chinese citizens are trying to enter the US through the rainforests of Central America. The report says Chinese citizens are using messaging platforms like WeChat to get details on how to reach the US-Mexico border. They are getting in touch with Chinese dissidents who have escaped the country in the past. To get out of the country, they are boarding planes to countries like Ecuador, and with the help of human traffickers, they are entering the United States of America. Some authorities have confirmed this, like the government of Panama. It says over 1,300 Chinese nationals crossed its Darien province and entered the US in 2022. These people paid an average of $5,000 to $10,000 for transport, smugglers, food, along with bribes to gangsters and corrupt policemen. The BBC has carried a detailed report on this. It says, in the days ahead, this exodus will only strengthen, given how travel has resumed and airports have reopened. Look at this report. China has issued a number of new passports and visas for next year. And this means millions of Chinese people are expected to go abroad starting January 2023. And there is no saying how many of them plan on returning. Now, that's one concern. Another concern is this: the risk of the Chinese citizens taking the virus along. I know what you must be thinking. The variant spreading in China has already been found in other parts of the world. But what if I tell you there are 3 other variants that are spreading in China? That's right. A new report says that the current COVID surge in China has been caused by not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 variants that are circulating in the country. And what's worse, the BF7 variant, which we know of and which the world is talking about, accounts for a small fraction of the cases. Let me break it down for you. According to the report, the BF7 accounts for just 15% of the cases. The majority of the cases, that's around 50%, are caused by variants from the BN and BQ series. The SVV variant is behind 10 to 15% of the cases, and the rest are caused by variants formerly circulating in China. It's a cocktail of deadly variants that behave differently in different settings. So there is no saying how prepared other countries are to deal with these variants if, God forbid, they start spreading on their soil. And before I wrap up this story, I want to share a list of names. Some of you may know them if you follow Chinese films. Zhang Mu Song Changrong, Renju, Chu Lanlan, Chen Jinghua, Yu Yu Heng, Xiong Ying Zheng, Yu Menglan, and Zhao Zihuan. These are all names of renowned artists, actors, socialites, and opera singers from China. And why exactly am I sharing their names with you? Because all these people are apparently no more. They have been allegedly killed by the Wuhan virus. And reports say all these deaths unfolded recently during the ongoing surge in infections. That's according to the Epoch Times, a news agency affiliated to the Falun Gong movement, a religious organization that China has banned. So we cannot really vouch for the veracity of these claims. But then again, as they say, there is no smoke without fire. More so given that this is China we are talking about, a country with the most restrictive media censorship in the world. And here's hoping that someday we get to know what happened to these individuals. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February this year, the first significant Ukrainian urban center to fall was Kherson. It was taken over by Russian forces on the second day of the war. And in all of these months, the strategic city in Ukraine's south has been at the heart of the war. For its people, there has barely been a break from the constant sound of mortar shell attacks. And now, when the war is close to completing a full year, Kherson is once again witnessing intense shelling from Russian forces. There have been multiple explosions. Smoke has been billowing from buildings destroyed by the fire. Ukraine says Russia is destroying civilian infrastructure with artillery and mortars. Ukraine says Russia has fired at least 33 missiles from multiple rocket launchers targeting Kherson in 24 hours. Air raid sirens were sounded across the country. On November 11, the streets of Kherson looked completely different. Civilians were seen waving Ukrainian flags and singing the national anthem. There were celebrations all around with jubilant scenes. They were celebrating being freed from Russian control. Ukraine had managed to regain control of the city, but celebrations soon were cut short. Russian troops that had withdrawn to the eastern bank of the Dnipro River fired mortar shells at least 41 times at the city. While Kiev viewed Russian troops' withdrawal from Kherson as a victory, many experts saw this as a trap. They say the Russian withdrawal from Kherson last month, which may have come across as a big sign of weakness on Russia's part, was instead a strategic and a well-calculated move. In fact, experts say Russian forces on the western side of the Dnipro were too exposed, overstretched, and undersupplied. They say the position was unsustainable and that moving back was the right military decision to prepare its defenses on the eastern bank of the river. Like I said, the Kherson Oblast, or the administrative region, is a strategically important region. It is often called the gateway to Crimea. Russia, in the first place, did not aim to take control over Kiev. What it wants is the complete control of a coastal land corridor, starting from Donetsk and Luhansk, bordering Russia, down to Mariupol, Melitopol, and till Kherson. It has already announced the annexation of 4 separatist-held regions, and this makes the gateway to Crimea exclusive to Russia. And not just that, it would make it easier for Russia to extend that to other Ukrainian cities or even to Moldova. But a splendid Ukraine military response has blocked Russia from achieving this goal. Ukraine, with its response, has proved that Russia cannot get more. It has also started hitting targets in Russia. A sharper response from Russia could always lead to unintended consequences. And with the latest escalation in Kherson, a wind down is certainly not in sight. In such a scenario, what Ukraine needs is more weapons, more equipment, more air defense systems, more drones. In short, more aid from the Western allies. Kiev's unlimited appetite for free weapons has burdened and strained the Western stockpile. At least 28 countries around the world have provided Ukraine with weapons since the 24th of February. And unsurprisingly, it is the United States that has provided the most military support for Ukraine. So far, it has committed at least $54 billion in aid, including at least $18 billion in military support. Let me just list out some of them for you. 700 Switchblade tactical unmanned aerial systems, 108 155mm howitzers with 220,000 artillery rounds, 1,400 anti-aircraft systems, 6,500 Javelin anti-armor systems, over 50 million rounds of small ammunition, 20 Mi-17 helicopters, 4 air surveillance radars. There's military equipment as well, and the list is very long. In fact, only last week, US President Joe Biden had pledged another $45 billion in support for Ukraine, a package that the Congress will now negotiate over. And if passed, this would be the 4th US aid package, and the total money allocated for Ukraine since February would be nearly $100 billion. I repeat, $100 billion from the US economy. Now, that's even more than Russia's defense budget for 2023. This staggering figure has drawn criticism from the Republicans. They say that Joe Biden has turned the conflict into a proxy war between the US and Russia. But you see, it's not just the Republicans. Strategic experts around the world, except those in the US, have said what's happening in Ukraine is nothing but a US proxy war. Some even refuse to use the word proxy. You see, proxy wars are indirect wars. They are often waged covertly, deniably, and outside the bounds of international law. But the US-Ukraine partnership is a clear and classic case of military and economic bilateral assistance. So can we even call it a proxy war? Major European powers, including Germany and the UK, are also among the largest arms suppliers to Ukraine. For how long can the West do so? NATO's stockpile is burdened by the ongoing war. We have been telling you about the West's dilemma as well, whether to supply Ukraine with weapons that it demands or to take a wary look at the US and NATO's diminished stockpiles. The Ukraine war has been Europe's deadliest conflict since the Second World War. Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly said he was open to negotiations, but at the same time he blames Ukraine and its Western allies for failing to engage in talks. And it is the United States that has been deeply and directly involved in the negotiations. The Ukrainian president even flew to Washington in the middle of the war to hold talks with the US president. So far, there have been less audible signals from Washington to end the war. It has spoken of peace, but has constantly armed Ukraine with weapons, indirectly keeping the war raging. So is Ukraine merely a cat's paw for the United States in its war against Russia? Let me ask you this question now. What do you like to eat for breakfast? Do you prefer sunny side up kind of mornings? Or if you are a meat lover, some eggs with sizzling sausages on the side perhaps? Or maybe the classic bacon, lettuce and tomato sandwich to go with your coffee? Frozen meats have become a breakfast staple for most people. You just have to take them out of the freezer, heat them up, and just like that, your breakfast is ready. Meats are packed with micronutrients like proteins and can be cooked within minutes. But what if I tell you that this protein-rich meal can actually make you sick? It could give you cancer. Let me explain how. Regular meat is cured, fermented and smoked. It undergoes several processes to be transformed into frozen meat. The processing improves the flavor. It also enhances the meat's shelf life. But it has several downsides which ring alarm bells but are being conveniently ignored. Nitrites. Does this chemical sound familiar to you? It might remind you of your chemistry lessons back in school. Nitrite is a key player in the frozen meat industry, and this chemical is actively used to prevent bacterial growth and improve meat's shelf life. It also makes the meat tastier and more appetizing. There are several regulations around using nitrites in meat processing. The EU legislation allows only limited use of this chemical. But the bigger question is, are those regulations followed? And just how accurate are they? Let's get to the math now. The WHO says you can eat up to 3.7 milligrams of nitrites per kilogram of your body weight. For example, if you weigh 60 kgs, you can take up to 222 milligrams of nitrites. Now, this limit can very easily be exceeded if you regularly consume frozen meats. A study by the scientists of Queen's University, Belfast, found some concerning results. The researchers conducted an experiment. They fed processed meat diet to mice. The meats contained nitrites and other chemicals, which are used to cure bacon. They also fed nitrite-free pork to another group of mice, and the results were shocking. The mice who ate the nitrite-rich bacon developed 75% more cancerous tumors as compared to the second group. About 90% of the bacon sold in the UK is thought to contain nitrites. Daily intake of this chemical can significantly increase the risk of cancer. The WHO has already classified frozen meats as Group 1 carcinogens. Note here that smoking also falls in the very same category. And there is convincing evidence that they cause cancer. And the recent study clarifies this further. It's not just the meat that raises concerns, it's the way it is cooked as well. Cooking food at high temperatures kills bacteria and is generally considered safe. But when it comes to processed meat, it's not as healthy as you might think it is. And here's why. Nitrites in processed meats are closely related to proteins. When cooked at high temperatures, they easily form nitrosamines, and this compound causes cancer. And that is why pan-fried bacons and grilled salamis raise red flags. Nitrosamines are not the only culprit, though. Another carcinogen is polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. They are commonly found in smoked meats. Heterocyclic amines are also on the list. They are created when meat is cooked over an open flame. And all these compounds are tumor promoting and can lead to bowel, colon, and rectal cancer. Processed meats have been recognized as carcinogens for years now, yet we prefer to stick our fingers in our ears and carry on. And why is that? It could be our fast lifestyle. Frozen meats are simply convenient. The pandemic further pumped up their consumption. More often than not, the fact that they can cause cancer is quite easily overlooked because there are no immediate consequences. And just like smoking, you don't get cancer if you smoke once or twice. If you eat frozen meat once in a while, you are most probably safe. But if they become an essential part of your diet, then you should be concerned. What are the meat manufacturers doing about this? They claim that additives ensure the safety of the meat. But is that even true? Bacon is made from a solid slab of fat and muscle. Unlike minced meat, it doesn't really need nitrites. But manufacturers use it regardless because it speeds up the curing. It saves money and gives bacon its characteristic color. But is that really necessary? There are some British companies that produce nitrite-free bacon. But one of them vanished without a trace, and that is because consumers were put off by the grey color, which was in fact healthier than the rosy pink one. So there are a lot of things to consider. Most importantly, our eating habits. But overall, frozen meats are bad news. Sticking to natural alternatives is better. While they take a little more time and effort to be cooked, they are safer and don't put you at risk of cancer. Our next story is about Pakistan and its godfather, China. The Pakistani Prime Minister says that his predecessor, Imran Khan, ruined the country's relations with its godfather. That his policies on the China-Pakistan economic corridor had angered Beijing. Exactly what made him say this? What are his intentions behind this? And is there any credit to his claims? Our next report explores.
These images are from Dera Ismail Khan, a city in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. On Monday, the Prime Minister of Pakistan went there to lay the foundation stones of different projects. But that's not what's making news. What's making headlines is this statement by him, where he blames Imran Khan for ruining Pakistan's ties with China. Watch how.
Believe me, this western route from Dera Ismail Khan, this is an integral part of China-Pakistan economic corridor. The plan for this was laid out in 2017, but the dispensation that came, it ruined Pakistan's growth, prospects and abandoned these plans. After this, progress and happiness became non-existent here. Our friends and brothers got upset with us.
This statement may have stemmed from political motives, but there's some credit to it. You see, under Imran Khan, a host of CPEC projects got stalled. Some by China, some by Islamabad. Why? Because of increased interference of the government in these projects. In fact, in 2018, a CCP study had found discrimination against local firms in CPEC projects. Around the same time, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government had complained about the lack of federal support for the completion of these projects. In fact, by 2022, 80% of CPEC projects were running behind schedule. Only 3 out of 15 projects were completed. So Shehbaz Sharif's attack does have some credit. After all, he's the brother of Nawaz Sharif, a man who's credited for the advent of CPEC during his rule. It was under his watch that China and Pakistan signed a series of MOUs. For infrastructure projects under CPEC, Shehbaz Sharif now says Imran Khan carried out a funeral of the love China showered on the country. The timing of this statement is significant. It comes just months before elections. The country will go to polls next year, and relations with China will play a huge role. After all, the country is Pakistan's godfather. So Shehbaz Sharif is only trying to win China over, to ensure his political fortunes fare well next year.
Democracy is synonymous with freedom, the freedom to elect lawmakers, the freedom to choose, the freedom to speak, the freedom to express. But how true are these correlations today? Not much, it seems. And case in point being the Twitter files. They say the US censored critical news. In other words, the world's oldest democracy withheld information from its own people. Critical information, if I may add. Information related to life and death. Why would a country do that? There are four broad historical rationale for censorship. One, political. You know, when an information or a piece of information compromises national security. Two, moral or obscene. Another historical rationale for censorship is religious, like blasphemy. And the fourth one is social, like when a piece of information can result in social disorder. But my point is, in a democracy, who gets to decide which piece of information is immoral or which is objectionable to a certain section of the society? This isn't national interest and there isn't any objective answer, which is why, in a democracy, censorship has no place. But the world's oldest democracy has been caught hiding and editing information that is of public interest, like pandemic-related information from credible experts, Harvard professors. The US has reportedly been paying Twitter to scrub certain content from the internet. Not just Twitter, but other social media platforms as well. And why is that? So that some people in power can benefit. Their narratives can benefit. Their reputation can be safeguarded. Just a quick reminder though, we are still talking about the United States of America, not China. In China, you see, censorship is the norm because China is an authoritarian regime where the state gets to tell fact from fiction. But the US is a democracy, the world's oldest democracy. So why was it pursuing social media platforms to label certain content as misleading? Why was the US censoring information? In a democracy, every citizen has a basic right. It's called the right to information. If I'm following a doctor on a social media platform, it's because I'm interested in his or her posts. I want to listen to what he or she has to say. But the US is interfering with this. It is deleting information on my social media feed, your social media feed, information that you and I signed up for. Who has given the US this right? Because it has been exercising it for a while now. I'm talking about the pre-pandemic era. Does the name Hunter Biden ring a bell? He is the son of US President. He is also a pretty controversial figure. American agencies reportedly asked Twitter to discredit damning information on Hunter Biden. In 2020, the New York Post ran a story. The report detailed the business dealings of Hunter Biden. And within hours, Twitter censored the article. So did the other social media platforms. And why is that? Perhaps because it would hurt certain people in power. So America's Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI, asked Twitter to play with facts, engage in shadow banning. And it's not just the establishment or the administration that is censoring content. The opposition is guilty as well. The two American parties have fundamental differences. But censorship has managed to find bipartisan support. Amazing, isn't it? Such is the state of today's democracies. China is smiling. It gets to build a solid case against this form of government. Tell the world how the world's oldest democracy failed to deliver on something as basic as transparency. How it failed the litmus test. It's such a tragedy because censorship immediately makes us think of China, Iran, North Korea, Myanmar, even Russia, if you may. But these revelations have forced us to expand the list of culprits and throw in democracies as well. These revelations force us to wake up, look around us, and realize how almost every democracy today has made room for censorship and eating into the space meant for freedom of speech, expression, discourse. You see, banning pornography is one thing, tracking terrorist communication is one thing, filtering violence from the social media, again one thing. There is regulation, and then there is censorship. The moment you hide critical information, it becomes censorship. And the moment you censor political media, you cross the holy line of democracy. You overstep your limits. Have a look at Europe. Political media is restricted in 12 countries. Belarus and Turkey engage in heavy censorship. Turkey is supposed to be a democracy, isn't it? So are Brazil and Paraguay. But at least 8 countries in South America censor political media. Paraguay is forcing self-censorship. And why just Paraguay? Most democracies today are guilty of enforcing self-censorship, where every speaker, writer, publisher, comedian is filtering herself in order to not land in trouble. And that happens because democracies today are weaponizing licensing, weaponizing registration. They are denying access to certain URLs without justification. So where does all of this leave modern-day democracies? Without a face or the right to call themselves one. On to the Korean Peninsula now. On Monday, when South Korean jets were scrambling to fight off unmanned drones sent by Pyongyang into its airspace, this is what the North Korean leader was up to. Claiming the country's success, Kim Jong-un addressed his party leaders and workers to chart their plan of action for the coming year and determine key security and economic policies. The 6th expanded plenary session of the 8th Central Committee of the Workers' Party was convened at the Central Committee's headquarters in Pyongyang. While the major party meeting may go on for days, Kim Jong-un has already laid out the key goals to boost military power. And this comes at a time when tensions in the Korean Peninsula are at their peak. Let me highlight a few phrases from the North Korean leader's speech that the state media has been reporting about. Newly created challenging situation on the Korean Peninsula, broader political landscapes, anti-enemy struggle, reinforcing self-defense. State media, Korean Central News Agency, did not provide complete details, but has stated that Kim Jong-un has set new military goals for the coming year. The statement by the state media reading, he specified the direction of the struggle against the enemy that our party and government must thoroughly abide by in order to protect sovereign rights and defend national interests. It further adds, new core goals for strengthening self-defensive capabilities to be strongly pursued in 2023 have been presented in preparation for diverse fluctuations in the political situation. Kim Jong-un has already said that he wants his country to have the world's most powerful nuclear force. He even declared the country an irreversible nuclear state this year. Earlier this year, the North Korean leader also warned that his nuclear forces are fully prepared for an actual war. Despite international sanctions, Pyongyang has been intensifying its weapons development. Pyongyang has had a record year of missile testing. North Korea has fired over 90 cruise and ballistic missiles so far this year. At one point, the isolated country launched 23 missiles in a single day. And just to put this in context, the country conducted only 4 missile tests in 2020 and around 8 in 2021. Though these tests are not new, their sheer frequency marks a significant escalation that has put the world on the edge. In recent months, North Korea even fired missiles in response to any diplomatic talks or military exercises between the US and South Korea. North Korea carried out 270 missile tests since Kim Il-sung's rule in 1984. Over a quarter came this year. And of that total, over 3/4 were recorded after Kim Jong-un came to power in 2011. Among the ballistic missiles tested this year was Hwasong-12. In October, it traveled more than 4,500 kilometers, flying over Japan. North Korea had done so for the first time in 5 years. Hwasong 14 was also tested. It has a range of over 10,000 kilometers. Just for context, the US island territory of Guam is just around 330 kilometers from North Korea. The weapon that drew international attention and concern was the Hwasong 17. It is North Korea's most powerful intercontinental ballistic missile to date. And why has this one drawn global concern, you wonder? Because theoretically, it can reach the US mainland. It has a range of over 15,000 kilometers. In March this year, Pyongyang claimed to have successfully launched this missile. However, South Korea and US experts say it could have been an older and less advanced missile. But in November this year, North Korean state media saying the Hwasong 17 was tested again, and this time it came with a warning. Kim Jong-un warned, saying that the country would take more offensive action in response to enemies seeking to destroy peace and stability in the Korean Peninsula and the region. Nuclear policy experts say that the word test is no longer appropriate to describe North Korea's launches. They say everything we have seen this year suggests that Kim Jong-un is serious about using nuclear capabilities early in case of a conflict. And if that stands true, then the North Korean leader seems to be well prepared, at least militarily, for resumption of the Korean War. You know what they say, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Getting the best of two worlds is a rare phenomenon, but also an ideal situation. And we know life is far from ideal. But when such things do happen, they deserve to be talked about. Before I tell you what I'm talking about, here's a question for you. Have you been itching to ditch your 9-to-5 job and start your own business? You know, do your own thing and not work for someone else. Does that sound tempting? Well, if you have been wanting to set up your own business and be self-employed, what's holding you back? The security of a job? Your salary slip, perhaps? You are not alone. The reason why a lot of people don't take this plunge is because they don't want to give up their job. They try and sail in both the boats, if possible, for as long as they can. But there is a way out, at least for those in the UAE. Here's what I'm talking about. The government of the UAE has a special New Year's gift for its employees. From the 2nd of January 2023, government employees wanting to start their own businesses will get a 1-year-long paid leave. A sabbatical leave for citizens working in the government who wish to run their own businesses. This leave lasts for a full year with half the salary while preserving the job. Sounds too good to be true, does it not? The country's cabinet has approved this new initiative to encourage more businesses there. The UAE president has said that they are looking to encourage young people to benefit from the opportunities offered by the national economy. And the leave will be approved by the head of the federal authority the employee works for and can be combined with unpaid leave and annual leave. The conditions and requirements for getting this leave for self-employment will be available on the website of the Federal Authority for Government Human Resources. A detailed guide has been prepared for economic projects and establishments that contribute to the growth of the country's economy, including details that help the authorities when considering their employees' requests for this entrepreneurship leave. According to a report in the Khalij Times, an official indicated that the UAE government would be working to launch partnerships with business incubators and leading companies in the private sector to build the capabilities of the employees who have got this entrepreneurship leave for self-employment and support them in the fields of entrepreneurship, establishing and managing companies. Now, this is a major move towards promoting entrepreneurship in the country and realizing the entrepreneurial skills of the population to allow Emiratis to start their own entrepreneurial journeys while retaining their government jobs. A one-of-its-kind initiative. It means opening up new economic opportunities, a unique way to promote the growth of businesses and entrepreneurship. It is a smart strategy, perhaps even make the Emiratis self-employed while relying on labor from outside. After all, the success of small and medium enterprises means economic growth for the country and more financial security. Basically, it would take care of the ambitions and aspirations of the people and also the goals of the government. Can or should other countries take inspiration? Write to us and tell us what you think. Now, did you get an increment in 2022 and was it up to your expectations? Most importantly, did it even keep up with the inflation? If the answer is no, you are not alone. 2022 has not been great for workers around the world. But CEOs, on the other hand, made the most of it. Our next report getting you the details.
The economy is slowly picking up, but the fear of recession still looms ahead in 2023. And at the receiving end are the employees. Inflation is soaring. There's a cost of living crisis going on, and workers are still getting peanuts. But on a positive note, the Japanese government has decided to prioritize in its economic policy next year. Bank of Japan has stressed that increasing wages is crucial to sustainably achieve 2% inflation rate. Companies are majorly responsible for deciding how much they hike the staffers' pay. But the government can also help achieve higher wages through tax incentives. Japan's consumer inflation has already hit a 4-decade high of 3.7%. This was well above the BOJ's target. This has hit households brutally, as they failed to keep up with the spike in prices of consumers' goods. And the reason was insufficient wage increments, as the employees struggle to make ends meet. Members of the C-suite are pocketing big money. Reports show India's top-listed companies clocked in a rise of 4% in their average consumption in the last fiscal year. This has been the highest in at least 5 years. Despite the disruptions caused by the pandemic, the big guys seem to be doing good for themselves. Chief executive officers in the top earning bracket, who earn over $1.2 million annually, are steadily growing. It is evident that the pay gap between the top and the bottom of the pyramid is continually increasing. The rich are getting richer as the middle class struggles to get by. In 2021, corporate CEOs were quick to blame worker wages for causing inflation. But according to a report by an American trade union, AFL-CIO, workers' real wages actually fell after inflation adjustment. Working people actually experienced a pay cut instead of an increment. All this when US companies enjoyed record profits. And CEO pay increased at an ever faster rate. CEOs of S&P 500 companies received $18.3 million in compensation on an average. Their pay rose 18.2% faster than the U.S. inflation rate of 7.1%. In contrast, U.S. workers' wages fell behind inflation. Worker wages rose only 4.7% in 2021, overall falling by 2.4%. This raises a question. Is inflation adjustment a joke for the employers? Is a hike in pay really a hike if it doesn't keep up with the soaring cost of living? Take the UK, for example. It is riddled with strikes, from nurses to railway staff, from bus drivers in London to border force agents and teachers. Everyone is protesting for better working conditions. The workers are in a tussle with the governmental authorities over unfair wages. And why not? The economy of several countries tanked, but it has affected people disproportionately. CEOs have always made more than their employees, but what has been going on in recent years is absurd. According to Bloomberg, American CEOs of the biggest publicly traded firms receive 144 times more than their median employee. The CEO pay ratio is calculated by dividing the CEO's compensation by the pay of the median employee. Walmart, for instance, has a CEO to worker pay ratio of 983 to 1. At Coca-Cola, the ratio is 1,621 to 1. And GameStop, the company which is at the center of this year's stock trading frenzy, has a ratio of 1,137 to 1. So, what gives? How much is being controlled by the upper 1%? And how long will this disparity continue? There's no denying. The executives and directors will, of course, always earn more. But does that mean the working class should continue to suffer? Don't they at least deserve to keep pace with the inflation, an increment that surpasses the rising prices? Is it too much to ask?
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight, leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.
ما شاء الله الدنيا كلها صارت بيضة يا جماعة كلها ثلوج ما شاء الله الله يبارك إن شاء الله كلها ثلج كلها ثلج يا جماعة
बचपन जिंदगी में सिर्फ एक बार आता है, उसे खुल के जीने दो, दाग लगने दो। दीवारों पर लगाए ना बर्जर इजी क्लीन पेंट, नो दाग नो धब्बा, ओनली ब्यूटीफुल वॉल्स। जो मैला ना हो रंगों में, वो क्या बचपन है। जो झूमे ना उमंगों में, वो क्या बचपन है। बचपन जिंदगी में सिर्फ एक बार आता है, उसे खुल के जीने दो, दाग लगने दो। दीवारों पर लगाए ना बर्जर इजी क्लीन पेंट, इसके क्रॉस लिंकिंग पॉलीमर से नो दाग नो धब्बा, ओनली ब्यूटीफुल वॉल्स।
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at WION.com.
It's code red for humanity. The alarm bells are deafening. Wildfires, floods, and hurricanes. Extreme climate events warn of impending doom. Is the world heading towards a climate catastrophe? Watch WION's Climate Tracker weekdays at 12 p.m. GMT, 5:30 p.m. IST.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert.
You have ignored us in the past and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses and we are running out of time.
Show us your faithfulness. Show us your trustworthiness. Show us your honesty. Prove us wrong. We desperately need you to prove us wrong. God help us all if you fail to prove us wrong. God help us.
1 trillion species. 7.8 billion humans. 1.9 million species extinct. 1 planet. Where are we heading? What should we do?
Watch Climate Tracker, only on WION. World is One.
From the world's most volatile region, conflicts over faith and boundaries. Stories of death, destruction, despair, and hope. WION brings you to the heart of the action. Incisive analysis, unrivaled perspective, and exclusive ground reports. Watch West Asia Post every Friday, 8:30 p.m. IST with me, Radi Francis. Only on WION. World is One.
Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views, and analysis. WIONews.com. World is One.